Welcome to your 10-minute Manager's Toolkit. We're going to talk about one of the trickiest things that you will do in your professional life, and that is moving from being a worker to being a supervisor, to being in charge, to being the boss. Even if it's a small boss, anytime that we are in charge of telling other adults what to do, that's quite a journey. And that's not just something that happens in the first month. For some of us, it's a short journey. For other of us, it's longer. But hopefully by listening to this, you can see some of the pathways that you're walking down. And by being able to see the path, you can make that journey a bit smoother. So let's go. So I've been in this game for coming up 25 years now, and I'm a great collector of anecdotes. I'm a great collector of stories and situations which I think perfectly exemplify this. And part of the purpose of these podcasts is to share those stories with you. Hey, in this situation, I found this. Now, I'm a little bit hamstrung that I can't share client stories, but I've got more than enough. But today, the story I want to tell you is not a story that I witnessed. Someone else told me, what an old colleague of mine, Tony, told me. So Tony, if you're listening and you recognize this, reach out. All credit to you. I'll share the $1.50 that I earned from this with you. Tony, when I worked with him, he was another senior manager. And he was going through the difficult process of developing a manager who reported to him who had recently been promoted to that role. And he told me this story, and he told this to her as well. And it was his journey from getting off the tools into a supervisory position. So he had been working in a lab. He was a lab tech in a former life. And he had been one of the lab techs, and he'd been working away with everybody else. And then they said, right, you've got potential. We're going to put you in charge. And for the first month or so, he was doing what he used to do. He would stay on the bench, he would stay on the tools, and then during his breaks and after work, he would do the supervisory stuff, the management stuff that he had to do. And he did this for a month or so. And then he realized, okay, I've got to stop doing this. So he stopped. So he got off the tools and he took himself away from the bench. And then he started to get grumbles. He got sideways looks and glances and disapproving comments here and there from his team, the people he used to work alongside now who reported to him. And he really questioned himself. And the outcome was he just had to do it, and he had to form the conclusion, these people are not right. That is not his job anymore. It's a difficult journey for them and a difficult journey for him. But what he had to do is get off the tools. So now let's talk about what he did with this particular new manager that he had. He basically banned her from the floor for a week. He said, look, what we're going to do from here is next week, you're not going on the floor. You can tell your supervisors that you're not allowed to. Whatever you like, however you manage it, but you are not to go on the floor and get on the tools. You have your own supervisors on the floor. If they have a problem, they will come and get you. But you need to get off the floor. You need to get off the tools for 1 week. And that's what he did, and that's what she did, and she found it hard. But it did work. But why did it work, and why was it necessary? To put it really simply, it's a journey. It's a real journey from the floor to the desk. It's a journey from the tools to off the tools, to go from your stethoscope to your laptop, from being patient-facing to being meeting-facing. This is a common journey that everybody goes through, and people like me who work in HR, this is stock and trade. Any organization I go into and I want a cheap win, I say the following. I could see the problem that you will have, and that is you have people of technical speciality promoted into management roles, and they haven't learnt the necessary skill set to succeed at that level. And they all nod at me sagely, go, oh yes, that's totally what was going on. How did you know that? And I think to myself, yeah, it's going to happen here because it happens everywhere. It is just one of those common journeys that everybody has to go through and everybody struggles with, from being a doer to being a director of others to do. So what can I do to help you? I can't fix this for you. What I can do is point out the journeys that you are having to go down, that you will be going down, or you have gone down, or you're halfway down, that you may not be realizing you're undertaking. You may not be realizing that you're walking. And I'm going to start with the easiest one. I'm going to start with the shortest journey. And that is not your journey, but the journey of your peers and your co-workers. To go back to the Tony story, it was a change for not just him, but also his co-workers, to see him as the person in charge, to see him as the person who can direct them, and to see him as someone who doesn't have to do as much work as they do on the floor. This is a difficult journey, and we talk about this a lot in the journey from buddy to boss. It's hard for some people to go from being peers and friends to now being supervisor and subordinate. Maintaining friendships and relationships through this can be difficult and also highly risky. There's nothing more complex and difficult than the two people who used to work side by side. Now one reports to each other and are still friends. Now that's difficult for them, but it's also difficult for everybody else in the teams. Down that pathway lies a whole lot of risk. But this is a short journey. This takes about a year for people to adjust to you are now the person in charge. You are the person who will not be on the floor. Someone else will have to do the work that you don't have time for anymore. Now let's talk about the medium, the middle bear, if you like, of growth pathways that you're taking when you go from on the floor to managing other people on that floor, from being on the floor to managing the floor, from being in the team to managing the team. That is not doing what you're good at. And we see this all the time in lots of different professions. We promote the people who are best at doing the job or are good at doing the job because we don't want to promote people for incompetent reasons. But often that person knows their beans and they are good at that. And we are taking that away from them, sort of, and throwing them in the deep end with other things that they don't know how to do. Managing staff, having difficult conversations. They were excellent builders, plumbers, sparkies, gas fitters, whatever you like. They were great at the doing, and that was 90% of their job. Now it's 30% of their job. The temptation to go back to what you are good at, to focus in where you are comfortable and capable and competent, is really tempting. More often than not, we see people keep doing because that's what they are good at. They know how to do. They know how to work. But now they need to know how to think. They know how to do the technical things that got them to the promotion in the first place. But the irony is we promote people out of that space. We promote people out of doing into directing and overseeing. And that person has to go on that journey, and they have to let go of what they are good at and embrace what they are not good at. And that's hard. And now let's talk about the hardest one to do. And this can be a lifetime journey. Some people have been in the job for years and still struggle with this. And this is where we get into that boogie word of micromanaging, which I won't go any further into. The hardest part of getting off the floor is delegation. The hardest part is taking our hands off what we used to do and we know how to do and maybe know better than the person who we are entrusting with, but it just doesn't work if we try and do their job and ours. We need to trust them to do their job that we have given them. Now, trust is a tricky question, and there's a lot to talk about into the question of delegation. But we need to unpack trust and not see it as a binary. Like you either trust someone or you don't. It's 100% or it's 0%. Delegation is a complex question there are degrees of. To keep it really simple, we need to learn how to trust people to the most extent that fits their capability and their job, whether or not that is 50%, 60%, or 70%. In practice, what this means is we need to have guardrails, we need to have checks, we have to have a qualified trust that they are going to do what needs to be done, and they know when to escalate and we know when to check. Trust is not a binary thing where we just say, look, do it all and never talk to me about it, versus I will tell you how to do in every little thing. There's a whole spectrum of delegation in between that we don't have time to talk about, but hopefully we will one day. But to keep it back to the journey off the floor, you have to learn to delegate. Someone who steps up into management has to learn how to trust to the right amount the people who are now doing the work that they used to do. So hopefully you found that interesting. There's lots to unpack and there's so many different avenues that we can go down, but I do like to keep these around 12 minutes and I do want to get to a point. And if there's something else that we need to talk about, we deal with that in a separate episode. Other than that, thank you for listening. So to be unashamed about this is something of an ad. We put these podcasts out there to help you learn, but also recognize that you might need to learn more in this space. And you might also need someone else to do things for you. There are two websites associated with this. One is Managing Medical, the other one is Managingtradies. Now, you don't have to be a doctor or an electrician to have a look at these or to go on our courses or see how we can help. But if you are more of a white-collar professional services type person, head to Managing Medical. If you're more industrial blue-collar, head to Managingtradies. We'll see you there. Otherwise, if you want to share us with other people, that really helps us out. That lets other people learn for free and also potentially engage us if they think that we can help them. But if not, not a problem. I'll catch you next time.